over 400 ballistic missiles, more than 700 drones. Every launcher was hot. Every magazine was emptied. That was Iran at maximum escalation, maximum output. Everything the regime built over 40 years was fired in a single day. 10 days later, 40 missiles, 60 drones. A drop of more than 90%. And it wasn't because Iran chose restraint. The supreme leader is still calling for all-out war. IRGC commanders are still threatening the heart of American forces. The rhetoric hasn't dialed back an inch, only the weapons have. The pundits aren't talking about this number. They're talking about 3 cargo ships hit near the Strait of Hormuz, a Thai bulk carrier in flames, a Japanese container ship struck, a Marshall Islands tanker hit. The IRGC claims the strait is closed. Iranian state media plays those clips on a loop, and every military channel on this platform is reporting the same thing. Iran strikes back. They are looking at the wrong scoreboard. 3 ships hit with weapons Iran cannot replace. Meanwhile, CENTCOM has struck over 5,500 targets inside Iran, over 60 warships destroyed. The entire Soleimani-class frigate fleet wiped from the order of battle, 16 minilayers sent to the bottom, and last night, a ballistic missile production facility was leveled by bomber forces. People are asking the wrong questions. How do we stop the fast boats? How do we protect the tankers? How do we sweep the mines? Those are tactical questions. And tactical questions are for pundits who have never read an engineering textbook. Engineers ask something else. Engineers ask, where do those weapons come from? Who built them? And is that factory still standing? The answer is rubble. If that answer matters to you, if you want to understand the war rather than just watch it, subscribe to Navy Decoded. Type proud in the comments. This isn't a war of fast boats and burning tankers. This is a war between consumption and production, and that war is already decided. There are 2 wars happening right now. One is the war the cameras show you, and one is the war that actually matters. The camera war is spectacular. IRGC fast boats swarming commercial ships, Shahed drones buzzing across the Gulf, tankers burning in the strait, pundits debating if Iran can close Hormuz. They replay the footage of the Mori Nari on fire and ask, is Iran winning? The real war has no footage. There are no explosions on screen, no smoke rising over the water. The real war is a spreadsheet, a cold, industrial ledger comparing 2 numbers. How fast Iran is consuming weapons versus how fast Iran can produce their replacements. When the first number exceeds the second, the war is over. Everything after that is just the clock ticking down. Iran isn't stupid. They understood asymmetric warfare before any American war college taught it. A $50,000 fast boat against a $2 billion destroyer. That exchange ratio always wins at the tactical level. Iran gambled that the U.S. didn't have enough interceptors to stop every drone, not enough missiles to sink every fast boat, not enough ships to patrol every mile of coastline. And they were right. At the tactical level, the math was perfect. But the U.S. isn't fighting at the tactical level. The U.S. is fighting at the industrial level. And industrial war has only one rule: the side that depletes its stockpile faster than it can regenerate loses. They don't run out of courage, they run out of hardware. This isn't a new concept. In 1943, Germany built the best tank on Earth, the Tiger I, superior in every one-on-one engagement. But the US didn't try to out-engineer the Tiger. The US outproduced it. 49,000 Sherman tanks against 1,400 Tigers. Every single Sherman was inferior, but the factories building them never stopped. The Tiger was a masterpiece. The Sherman was a production line. The production line won. Quality sets the ceiling. Quantity fills the battlefield. And when your factories are rubble, you have neither. Iran is firing. The US is burning the factories. Run the equation. Over 400 ballistic missiles on day 1, 40 on day 10, a 90% drop in 10 days. That isn't a ceasefire. That is a production line that no longer exists. Look at the map. Sharud, one of Iran's most critical missile complexes, responsible for the solid-fuel rocket motors that power the Khaybar-Shikan and the Fatah. 1. Satellite imagery confirms widespread destruction. The solid-fuel assembly lines, the hardest part of any ballistic missile program to produce, are gone. Parchin, the military complex housing 2 to 3 solid propellant production facilities, has been gutted. Kojir, on the outskirts of Tehran, the IRGC's primary hub for surface-to-surface missile development. Rubble. The technical reality is this: a ballistic missile is not one weapon. It is the convergence of 4 independent systems: solid propellant, the metal airframe, the guidance package, and the transporter erector launcher. Remove any one of those 4, and the missile doesn't fly. You don't have to destroy all 4. You have to destroy the one that's hardest to replace. Solid rocket fuel requires specialized chemistry, controlled environments, and production lines that take years to build. Sharud built those lines. Sharud is now ruins. The replacement time isn't months, it's years. Years that Iran doesn't have. 400 on day 1. 40 on day 10. That isn't a tactical adjustment, that's an extinction curve. The ballistic missile equation is solved. Over 700 drones on day 1. Same trajectory. Same cause. Shahed Aviation Industries in Isfahan, the factory that produces the Shahed series drones, Iran exported to Russia, launched against Israel, and deployed across the Gulf. The hangars, production shops, and storage facilities were hammered by bomber forces. Hessa, the Iran Aircraft Manufacturing Industrial Company, also in Isfahan, was targeted. Iran's cheapest and most widely deployed weapon infrastructure is collapsing. A Shahed drone is not a complex weapon. A GPS guidance unit, wings made of composite materials. Iran designed it to be disposable, cheap enough to lose by the hundreds. Before this war, Iran's estimated production capacity was 200 to 300 drones per month. That was the math Iran was running. Lose them faster than the enemy can shoot them down, and the enemy runs out of interceptors before you run out of drones. The math was right until the factories burned. You can't produce 300 drones a month from a production shop that no longer has a roof. The supply chain for GPS modules and piston engines depends on imports. Imports that are no longer arriving through ports blockaded by the 3-carrier siege we discussed in the last video. Iran's drone production was designed for peacetime output. Destroying the production facility during wartime doesn't cut output in half. It cuts output to near zero. Because a factory isn't a single machine, it's a convergence of tooling, workers, raw materials, and power. Remove any factor, and the line stops. 700 on day 1. 60 on day 10. The factories are rubble. The supply chain is cut. The equation only moves in one direction, and equations don't negotiate. This math is harder, and we'll be honest about that. The IRGC operates over 1,500 fast attack craft. Small, cheap, priced between $50,000 and $500,000 each, built from fiberglass hulls, outboard motors, and a single anti-ship missile, usually the Nasr-1. They're produced in small boatyards scattered along the Iranian coast. You can't destroy them the way you destroy a missile factory, because there isn't one factory. There are hundreds of workshops. This is the equation that isn't fully solved yet. Fast boats are simpler than ballistic missiles, cheaper than drones, and harder to eliminate through industrial strikes alone. Iran can keep building hulls longer than it can build missiles. But a hull is not a weapon. The weapon is the Nasr, one missile mounted on it, and the Nasr, one is produced at facilities in Isfahan and Parchin, places that are now ruins. A fast boat without a missile is a fishing boat with a machine gun. A fishing boat with a machine gun cannot close the strait. The same logic applies to the rest of Iran's attrition fleet. CENTCOM destroyed 16 dedicated mine layers. Small vessels that dropped contact and bottom mines into the strait, but the ships are just the delivery system. The mines themselves come from storage facilities and production lines. General Kurilla confirmed that CENTCOM continues to hunt and strike mine storage facilities inside Iran. No new mines are being produced, no storage facilities to reload, and no mine layers to distribute them. The mines already in the water are the last ones Iran will deploy. Every one swept is one that will never be replaced. And then there are the Ghadir-class submarines. Over 20 vessels designed for shallow water operations in the strait. They carry torpedoes, the Valfaja, and can also lay mines. But a submarine without a torpedo is 95 feet of steel with nothing to fire. The Parchin complex that produced torpedo components has been struck repeatedly. A Ghadir submarine with empty tubes is just a hull hiding underwater. No weapons, no factory to reload, no mission. Across the entire attrition fleet, the same equation applies. The weapons were produced at factories that no longer exist. The supply chain is throttled by economic blockade, and CENTCOM is hunting the platforms themselves. Fast boats are hit daily. Miner layers are sunk. Submarine positions are exposed. Run the swarm math. Iran needs 30 to 50 fast boats attacking simultaneously to overwhelm an Aegis combat system. If Iran loses 15 to 20 a week and can no longer arm the replacements, the swarm falls below the effective threshold within months. The mine layers are gone. The mine factories are hit. The Ghadir subs are running out of torpedoes, not because every platform was destroyed, but because the weapons that made them dangerous are disappearing. 1,500 fast boats, 20 submarines, 16 mine layers are still out there, but the boatyards, missile plants, torpedo factories, and mine depots are gone. Boats without weapons are just boats. Subs without torpedoes are useless. Miner layers without mines are just empty barges. And none of them close the strait. Now let's address the objection every viewer is thinking. 3 ships were still hit. Tankers are still burning. If the U.S. is winning the industrial war, why are commercial ships still taking damage in the strait? Because those ships were not under U.S. escort. They were not ordered into the strait by CENTCOM. They entered on their own despite the warnings, despite the IRGC threats, despite every intelligence agency on Earth identifying that corridor as a killbox. The U.S. Navy didn't send those ships into Hormuz. Shipping companies sent them. And that distinction is critical because it shows the difference between patience and recklessness. The shipping companies looked at the price of oil. They looked at the war risk insurance premiums, $4 million per transit. They looked at the potential profit from a cargo of crude. And they did what impatient people always do. They treated the numbers like odds and tried to beat the house before the equation was fully solved. They gambled. 3 of them lost. The U.S. Navy doesn't gamble. The U.S. Navy looked at the same strait. A 6-mile-wide usable corridor, seeded with mines by the IRGC, patrolled by Ghadir-class submarines, stalked by fast boats, and made a different calculation. Not a profit calculation, a physics calculation. 1 mine under an Arleigh Burke, $89.5 million in repairs, 10 sailors injured, 4 with severe burns evacuated to a military hospital in Germany. That isn't a hypothetical. That was the USS Samuel B. Roberts in 1988. A $1,500 mine blew a hole through the hull, snapped the keel, and flooded 2 compartments. That isn't a budget number. That's a crew. 1 torpedo from a Ghadir. And we lose the ship. $2 billion. 300 sailors for a transit. The shipping companies rushed the equation. We didn't, because we don't need to solve the equation inside the strait. We are solving it outside, at the source, while those cargo ships rushed through a corridor that was still dangerous. The bomber force was leveling the factories that made the corridor dangerous. Every night, another assembly line goes cold. Every week, the stockpile shrinks. Every month, the threat inside the strait drops. Not because we cleared it with escorts, but because the enemy is running out of things to fire. That's the difference between a trader and an engineer. A trader looks at today's risk and places a bet. An engineer looks at the trajectory of the equation and waits. Because the equation has already moved in our favor. And here is the twist Iran didn't calculate. Iran believed cheap weapons would always defeat expensive weapons. At the tactical level, that's true. A $50,000 fast boat against a $2 million Tomahawk. But the U.S. isn't firing Tomahawks at fast boats. The U.S. bolted a $20,000 GPS guidance kit to a $4,000 Mark 82 bomb and dropped it on the factories that built every weapon Iran owns. A $24,000 weapon package kit and bomb included wiped out decades of investment. Admiral Cooper stated clearly, "Since the first 24 hours, Iranian missile and drone attacks have significantly decreased." He didn't say Iran chose to stop. He said the attacks decreased. Iran isn't showing restraint. Iran is running out of things to fire. If you now see the factories instead of the fast boats, subscribe to Navy Decoded and share this with someone who still thinks patience is a weakness. Now let's run the final numbers. 3 cargo ships hit near the Strait of Hormuz. The IRGC claims the strait is closed. The experts panic. Who is winning? Count what matters. Iran hit 3 commercial ships with weapons it can no longer produce, from factories that no longer exist. Using a stockpile that is down over 90% in 10 days, 400 missiles on day 1, 40 on day 10, 700 drones on day 1, 60 on day 10. Sharud is rubble, Isfahan is rubble, Parchin is rubble. The fast boats still patrol the strait, but the anti-ship missiles that make them lethal are no longer in production. They are being pulled from an increasingly empty warehouse. 3 ships were damaged because 3 shipping companies were too rushed to wait for the equation to complete. The U.S. Navy is not in a rush. The U.S. Navy is solving the equation at the source, factory by factory, production line by production line, stockpile by stockpile. Iran hit 3 ships. The U.S. permanently erased the industrial infrastructure, the infrastructure that produced the missiles, built the drones, armed the fast boats, and manufactured the mines. Industrial war has only one outcome. The side that cannot rebuild loses. And Iran is not rebuilding. Iran is burning through what's left. In the last video, we showed you the economic siege. 3 carriers at 3 choke points throttling Iran's oil revenue. No oil exports, no foreign currency, no imports. That was the first half of the equation. This is the second half. No revenue means no raw materials. No raw materials means no functioning factories. No factories means no weapons. The siege cuts the money. The strikes cut the production. Together, the equation has one answer, and it isn't an answer Iran can change. The enemy doesn't surrender because the bombs stop falling. The enemy surrenders because the factories stop producing and the warehouses are empty. And the last missile in the last launcher is the last missile that will ever be built. That isn't firepower. That's industrial math.